According to Tan Leong Thong textbook, corporate social responsibilities is a concept whereby organizations consider the interest of society by taking responsibilities for the impact of their activities, which focus on 5 main disclosure: employee benefit, community activities, environmental protection, product and service improvement, and other voluntary disclosed. Global Reporting Initiative (GRI) defines sustainability reporting as the practice of measuring, disclosing, and being accountable to internal and external stakeholders for organizational performance towards the goal of sustainable development. Sustainability reporting involves the production of information about the social, environment, and economic performance of an organization published by the organization that they had contribute or plan to contribute to the society. Sustainability reporting involves the production of information about the social, environment, and economic performance of an organization published by the organization that they had contribute or plan to contribute to the society. The accountability is needed in preparing this report. It can be defined as duty to undertake certain actions in accordance with the expectations of a group of stakeholders, and provide a reckoning or account of those actions to the stakeholders. The concept of accountability is: the broader our notion of accountability, the broader the types of accounting that we would embrace. Thus, we are likely to disclose information about our social and environmental performance. There are 4 stages in sustainability reporting. The first stage is the why stage. It relates to management's motivations whether to disclose the social and environmental reporting. These are the theories to explain the why stage: legitimacy theory and social contract, stakeholder theory, accountability model, institutional theory, and positive accounting theory. The second stage is the whom stage. Managers need to increase shareholder value, then reporting will be aimed primarily to satisfy the expectations of powerful stakeholders. Next, the third stage or what stage. Managers require to identify information needs through dialogue with stakeholders. Channel that can be used to obtain information is face-to-face, questionnaires, opinion polls. Lastly, the fourth stage, how to report. Conventional financial accounting does not provide a foundation for social and environmental disclosures. Reporting various social, environmental, and economic indicators, TBL reporting, is an alternative. although it is not the same as sustainability reporting. One of the theory involved in CSR is legitimacy theory. Legitimacy theory explains that organizations continually seek to ensure that they operate within the bounds and norms of their respective societies. In adopting a legitimacy theory perspective, a company would voluntarily report on activities if management perceived that those activities were expected by the communities in which it operates. This theory is widely used to explain social and environmental reporting. It is also depends on an implicit social contract between the business entity and society. Legitimacy is achieved by demonstrating that companies' activities are concordant with social values. Organizations require legitimacy to operate. Loss of legitimacy can have serious consequences for an organization, such as it may lead to the loss of public support for the organization's activities and changes in the expectations of the community. Company legitimacy theory through strategies include informing the public about corporate actions that correct previous deficiencies, changing the perceptions of external stakeholders, changing the focus of the public by moving attention from the problem areas, and educating the public about actual changes in the organization's performance and activities. Well, with that being said, legitimacy theory and stakeholder theory has quite a number of similarities. Therefore, it should not be treated as two separate theories, but two overlapping perspectives of the issue set within a political economy framework. Stakeholder theory can be defined as a theory of organizational management and business ethics that addresses morals and values in managing an organization. This theory can be further expanded into two broader branches, which are ethical moral or normative branch and positive managerial branch. In the ethical branch of the stakeholder theory, it is normative in orientation. This means that this branch creates a standard for evaluating or making judgments about behavior or outcomes. Ethical branch applies a theory of seeing that all stakeholders have the right to be treated fairly by an organization. This branch focuses on both primary and secondary stakeholders. Ethical branch applies a theory of seeing that all stakeholders have the right to be treated fairly by an organization. It is concerned with the stakeholders who can affect the organization as well as with those who are affected by the organization. The organization plays an important role to manage itself for the benefit of all stakeholders. In terms of stakeholder power in the ethical branch, it is not relevant. This branch sees that all stakeholders deserve consideration in their own right. The last point of ethical branch is role of corporate reporting. Before we look further into this point, let us understand what corporate reporting means. Corporate reporting is the responsibility driven and linked to considerations such as rights to know. Therefore, in the ethical branch, corporate reports will be used to inform stakeholders about the extent to which the actions for which the organization is deemed to be responsible have been fulfilled. Alright, now let's look into the second branch of stakeholder theory, which is the managerial branch. The managerial branch is positive in orientation. It considers with stakeholders who can affect the organization which are also known as the powerful stakeholders. The role of the organization in the managerial branch is to manage itself for the benefit of the owners and powerful stakeholders. In terms of stakeholder power, it is relevant and stakeholders will be identified on the basis of the extent to which their need must be managed in order to further the interests of the organization. Lastly, the corporate report is used as a strategy to manage the interests and influence of powerful stakeholders so as to further the interests of the organization. Definition of institutional. Scott 2008 states that institutional are comprised of regulative, normative, and cultural cognitive elements that, together with associated activities and resources, provide stability and meaning to social life. Definition of institutional theory. According to Scott and Mayer, it is the behavioral systems which contain representational, constitutional, and normative rule together with regulatory mechanisms that define a common meaning system and give rise to distinctive actors and action routines. This theory links organization to societal values. There are two main scopes of institutional theory. First is isomorphism. According to DiMaggio and Powell, 1983, it refers to a constraining process that forces one unit in a population to resemble other units that face the same set of environmental conditions. There are three different isomorphic processes which are coercive, mimetic, and normative. Coercive isomorphism comes from the changes of institutional practices because of pressure from those stakeholders upon which the organization is dependent. Mimetic isomorphism means that an organization often copies other organizations' practices to sustain competitiveness and to reduce uncertainty. According to DiMaggio and Powell 1983, uncertainty refers to force that encourages imitation. Normative isomorphism is a pressure from group norms to adopt particular institutional practices. It comes from the similar attitudes and approaches of professional groups and associations brought into the organization through hiring practices. Therefore, based on what has been discussed, these are the outcomes of isomorphism. The tendency towards similarity of corporate structures and processes. Then, isomorphic processes do not necessarily make the organizations more efficient. In practice, it is not easy to differentiate between types of isomorphism. The second main scope of institutional theory is decoupling. This theory can be defined as the actual organizational practices is different from what has been publicly pronounced practices. The triple bottom line is an accounting framework that incorporates three dimensions of performance: social, environmental, and financial. The TBL dimensions are also commonly called the three Ps: people, planet, and profits. To TBL, environmentalists has difficulty with measures and frameworks of sustainability. There is no universal standard method for calculating the TBL. Neither is there a universally accepted standard for the measures that comprise each of the three TBL categories. TBL is able to be case-specific or allow a broad scope measuring impacts across large geographic boundaries or a narrow geographic scope like a small town. Level of the entity, type of project, and the geographic scope will drive many of the decisions about what measures to include. The set of measures will ultimately be determined by stakeholders. Stakeholders' ability to collect the necessary data will drive the TBL calculation.